Thank you so much for joining us on the webinar today. And thanks for everyone who's joining us at different time zones. We appreciate everyone taking their time out of the day. And I'd like to welcome our guests for today, Phil Pine and April Albertine from Capital Educators. And from GamaLearn, you have myself, Omar, Rizk, the Chief Technology Officer, and I'm joined with my colleague and Customer Relations Manager, Caroline Dobrova, who looks after our customers out of US, Canada, and European Union and UK. And today, we're going to have a very interesting case study and an amazing success story with a great organization like Capital Educators. We couldn't be happier to share this with everyone, especially at an important time with getting back to schools and a lot of the prepping for tests coming up with different organizations, different institutions across the world, especially for SAT, and with the changes that have happened over the last year and the new regulations for the College Board about the changes that's coming up to SAT exams in a digital form. Very few organizations have jumped at the chance of taking a leap and actually pioneering a change in terms of prepping their students not just only for the SAT at a core, but also for the SAT new experience. And today's case study is all about that. And today, feel free to drop in a Q&A in the Q&A box for the webinar, and our team will do their best to get at your questions one at a time. Also, the moderation for the chat will be done through our great colleague Caroline. So by all means, let me just welcome again our guests and start by saying, give us a little bit about introduction about Capital Educators, who you are and what you do.
Sure. So again, I'm Phil Pine. I'm the co-founder and director of Capital Educators. April Albertine joins me, who is our IT director and serves as the project leader with the work we've been doing with GamaLearn. Brief history of our organization. I started CapEd in 1997. And so for over a quarter century, as an educational consultancy, we have focused exclusively on preparing high school students for university, specifically the college entrance exams, known over here as the SAT and the ACT. Because we've stayed so narrow in our focus, because we've only really worked on these tests, it's really enabled us to continuously refine and improve our systems. But to be perfectly candid, when the announcement was made by College Board that the test was flipping over to digital, this represented more than a touch of refinement. And so we've been very pleased to partner with GamaLearn in this endeavor.
Thank you so much, Phil. So Omar, if you could also give us a brief description of GamaLearn.
Sure thing. So GamaLearn was established in, I'd say, at the very beginning of 1989. So almost 30 plus years now in the industry. We're based out of UAE. So GamaLearn is specialized in developing core solutions for not just the educational sector, but also corporate and government, specializing in learning, training, and assessment. And specifically in the past, I'd say over a decade now, we've been focusing on one of our flagship platforms, which is SwiftAssess, and driving assessment transformation across the globe over I think every sector from ministries of education to K-12 chains to testing and training centers. And of course, it made so much sense to our vision and mission to sort of embrace such a sort of movement and making sure to accommodate such regulations and changes over time. So we're partnered with companies and organizations like Capital Educators and many more across the globe. Really helps us commit to our vision and mission. So again, welcome Phil and April to this amazing case study today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. So I have a question for April. April, could you please tell us why did you choose GamaLearn for this project, and what were your key considerations in this decision?
Sure. Well, I guess it all comes back to the fact that we had a pretty big undertaking for the scale of our company, and our kind of limited resources that we have in terms of being able to create something from scratch. We weren't able to do that for the SAT. We weren't able to just come up with our own way of giving digital tests. So it was my project to investigate what was out there that might be suitable for our needs. We did end up kind of narrowing it down to 2 companies that we thought might work for us. And we kind of in parallel worked with both of them, and at a certain point realized that there was such a huge difference in what the 2 companies were willing to do to make the test work, make their platform work for our test. So we found that Omar was always saying, well, what is it that you actually need? What do you need to actually make your test, make our platform work for your test? And the main thing we needed was fidelity to what the real SAT is like. We needed it to be pretty close to what the real SAT platform looks like. And when we started our conversation with Omar and GamaLearn, Swift Assess wasn't 100% what we needed, and they made it what we needed. And so that was the reason that we ended up going this direction, is because they were willing to tailor what they already had to meet our needs.
Yeah, if I could just add, I mean, from my vantage point, it was really GamaLearn's flexibility from the get-go that I think distinguished your organization from the others we interacted with. We never got answers like, well, this is how our system works, and that was the end of it. So we're very appreciative of the collaboration we engaged in over at least a 6-month period in getting this up and running.
Thank you, April. Thank you, Phil. So the next question is for Phil, actually.
Okay.
So Phil, could you please describe how your testing was previously administered?
Sure. More primitively would be my short answer. The SAT has been around since, I think, 1926. So for almost 100 years, this exam has been administered in the States, at least, as a means of acceptance into American universities. It's changed many, many times over, but in every iteration, the test remained an old school paper and pencil exam, which meant, College Board physically sending thousands upon thousands of booklets throughout the country and answer sheets. It led to all kinds of security issues over the last century in terms of content getting lost in shipment along the way. And so when the test has changed since the time I've been running CapEd, it's been about changing our curriculum, but never about changing the delivery, changing the platform. And that's why this really was such an exciting moment for us.
Well, thank
Brilliant.
you so much, Phil. Then the next question is for April. What were you looking for in this solution, April?
Sure. Well, we needed to find something that would do something called multi-stage testing. And it's kind of a halfway point between old school linear tests, which you can take on paper, and then the more modern computer adaptive tests where the test gives you a new question each time based on your answers to the previous questions, and that happens on a question by question basis. The SAT is going to a place that's in between those two things. It's not completely linear, it's not completely adaptive, it's adaptive by stages. And so we needed to be able to deliver our test that way. We needed to be able to deliver different subjects, math and verbal, like totally separate tests, but within the same testing session. And then we needed to be able to go adaptive by stage. And so that's what we really focused on. And we also had a few other smaller items that we hope to get implemented, and we did get implemented, that would make the test closer in look and feel to the real digital SAT, such as the graphing calculator and some other details.
Yeah, thanks, April. Then, Omar, please describe GamaLearn's approach to digitizing exams, and how did you specifically cater to the SAT's unique requirements?
Sure thing as well. So I'm actually taking from the same points that April just very well put. The idea was obviously, and for the most part, inspired by April's dedication to making sure it's as equal or even better to the experience that students are going to get with the actual SAT exam in its new digital form. And I believe at the point there was some material online from College Board as to what students will be expecting, some resources and tools for them to practice on, and so on and so forth. So with that information, we were given the requirements of listen, we need to make sure students have certain capabilities on screen to mimic exactly how things are. So for example, when you look at the actual SAT in digital form, or I think in paper pen, and correct me if I'm wrong, April, students have to cross out on MCQ questions the questions that are the answers that are not applicable. It's an approach to the MCQ based question types. And of course, things that are related to calculators that do graphing. So in modern terms, Desmos calculators are very used across the norm, much like other plugins like GeoGebra and whatnot. So it was one of those things that also needed to be on screen, and it's available to the student's disposal. The best part is what I think drove April and Phil's decision. It wasn't, and again, thanks so much for the shout out to the flexibility and all, but I believe it's also been the flexible foundation for Swift Assess from the get-go being a dedicated assessment platform. It was very easy to sort of incrementally add these features, whether from an authoring or delivery perspective. And it was just because of the leadership of April, end to end of this project was very easy to sort of put through different parallel tracks. Like, these are the teams that will focus on this delivery aspect, and we sort of worked at it at an agile pace. So we had iterations of deliveries with UATs and approvals and actual internal tests to make sure we sign off on these different capabilities. And once everything came together, it was just business as usual. So that's pretty much it where I can highlight at this point.
Probably you'd like to share the video, Omar?
Yeah, that's very good. So if everyone would be interested, again, we had a little bit of a curated video of an experience of how Swift Assess caters to the digital SAT experience, and courtesy to Capital Educators content, as well as to their like the way they put together their test, and this sort of shows everyone the experience. So let me just go ahead and share the. Can everyone see my screen? Is everyone able to see my screen now, Caroline? The video on the
yes.
Okay, great. So the full screen for the PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay, we'll just do that then. So I hope that was both audible and viewable to everyone. Just a quick reel of how the experience is. And again, thanks to all the efforts from April and the team as well from GamaLearn for sort of putting it together, just in time.
Thank you, Omar, for showing us how GamaLearn ensured a smooth and easy students' experience leveraging Swift Assess platform. Then I just wanted to discuss the ticketing system and immediate support GamaLearn provided to capital educators. How was this tailored to meet these specific needs? Omar and April, you can both share your experience.
I think this is definitely perfectly fit for both us. And actually, April has a little bit of to weigh in on this as well. So I give it to you first, Phil and April. Take it away with the support.
Well, I mean, as we were initially running our very first couple of tests, we had a certain amount of anxiety because we've only ever delivered these tests on paper before. So this is like totally new ground for us. And so when we did have our first few rounds of testing, I believe you guys had somebody up in the middle of the night to make sure that you were there to answer questions as they came up, and they did come up here and there. And I know I was keeping people up late, but I did appreciate having people there for us when we needed them. And then also on an ongoing basis throughout the week when we have questions, the ticketing system, it seems to work really well. I always get an answer back very quickly.
The thing is, I wanted to add a thing here. So one of the things that was very concerning at the beginning from like Phil was concerned that working with a company that is not essentially on the same time zone, not operating at the same time interval would have a bit of a difficulty, especially the very beginning of the project. And so the thing is, we wanted to make sure that we convey this to Phil, we convey to every other international customer we work with is we have different teams, positioned at different time intervals at the day. We cover Middle East and Africa, we cover Asia Pacific, we cover European Union very recently as well. So that just demands our presence in more ways than one. And definitely our supporting system and our ticketing system and our follow-up definitely for this project was more dedicated and committed than anyone else's in general terms. But of course, it's the nature of the support and the work together that ensures the success, not just the technology. So it's a mix of both.
So the message here is that have no fear at all. So GamaLearn will serve you wherever you are.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. Thanks, Caroline, for highlighting.
Yeah. Caroline, you could have assuaged my concerns months ago if you jumped in.
look at that, huh?
Thanks, Phil. So. Phil and April, could you please describe what was the process of going live in March 2023 like, and how are preparations going for the actual tests in 2024?
Sure. So if I can actually pull back a half step, I should mention, the SAT is currently being administered digitally internationally, but not in the States. So in the U.S., the first official SAT that'll be administered online won't happen until March of 2024. That said, there's a ton of curiosity out there, not only among people in test prep, but certainly among educators and schools as to what this exam looks and feels like. And so we've been approached by many schools and school systems within our area about administering sample exams. And as a result, we established this deadline a full year before the official launch of the test. So in March of 2023, April and I packed up our things, administered that first exam, stumbled into a bump or two along the way. But I was incredibly appreciative, Omar, of your team's willingness to meet that first deadline and to get us up and running. Because as you predicted yourself, we were probably 80+% of the way there in March of 2023, and we were able to use that first exam as a real learning experience.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think having that early deadline's been really useful. We have another 1 to 2 dozen schools that want us to give exams over the next month, and so we're very excited to put the platform to much more active use literally in the coming days.
And if I can actually jump in as well, I think,
Sure.
with the international presence of digital SAT for the past few months, that means more and more people can put to use what you've been using basically since March 2023 in its very same form, April, as well, right? So nothing, is it different from like the one that's going to be delivered in the US? It's exactly the same paradigm. So for those of you who are joining us here from an American system or delivering SAT prep tests as well, so you can actually pretty much leverage this already. You don't have to wait until March 2024 since you already know about the regulations. Just wanted to make sure that this is clear to our audience as well.
Yeah, the exams are 100% identical. They've only rolled it out this way so they can gradually build up. Because obviously the numbers will intensify once they start to administer in the States.
That's great. Okay.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Omar.
Thank you for that.
The next question is for GamaLearn. So, Omar, what do you think, how this collaboration with capital educators helped GamaLearn break into the US market? And what are your plans for the future?
Maybe if I would have reworded this question, I'll probably say, how does this help expand our partnership globally? And there's definitely a lot more than one way we're doing this. So I think, I don't know, April, can you remember the first time you stumbled upon GamaLearn's name? Maybe was it a referral? Was it maybe an organic search?
It was definitely an organic search. I had, done a number of searches and finally kind of stumbled upon the website at some point, and then put in like a form, and somebody immediately got back to me and wanted to know more about what we needed.
So the idea is GamaLearn has established its SaaS experience and SaaS offerings probably a couple of years back now, and with that commitment, we have a global strategy of reaching out and working with basically unlimited number of customers across all countries. So we've geared all of our internal teams to make sure we're able to deliver. So as we were saying earlier to Phil, like the support teams, localizations, engines that support people to be able to procure and manage their subscriptions and so on and so forth. Our collaboration and partnership with Microsoft specifically for the past, I'd say, over a decade now. Actually, I think we're coming up to a decade, so we're going to do an anniversary celebration soon. And this collaboration has enabled an unparalleled experience in terms of working on cloud and really sort of spreading our wings out there and really working with customers and partners across the globe without a fear of, let's say, we have spiking workloads or what do we do here, what do we do there. It's pretty elastic. US was pretty much a stepping stone with for the market, and I think it's a great entrance. We love working with organizations like Capital Educators. They have a great story to tell and a great track record, and we want to work with a lot more of the same category of organizations like Capital Educators who are committed to delivering this very specific yet very concrete way of doing business and very specialized as well, right? And this actually inspires a lot more businesses and organizations to do the same. So whether you're doing this in a pretty established and well-established, well-saturated market with other, let's say, people doing the same thing in the domain, they can still pioneer, do something differently. So I think this is our sort of global strategy that we're building on. And I hope this partnership with, Capital Educators is only the beginning. There's a lot more to discover along the way.
Thank you, Omar.
Sure,
so, April, what do you think? How does the collaboration align with Capital Educators' overall mission, vision for the future of education? And what has been the most rewarding aspect of this partnership?
Sure. Well, the overall mission and vision is got to be, we are part of the modern world as it is, and we have to change with the times as they do. Keeping up with the changing tide, even though we have the way we've done our things for 25 years, we have to be flexible, and so that's the main thing. Is this is allowing us to be flexible and to move with the times, and in terms of the like rewarding aspects of the partnership, I just really have really appreciated that I feel that we're not at all another number for GamaLearn at all. Like I know it's kind of I don't know, people say that a lot, but it's really the reality here, because if we did have problems, I could reach out directly to Omar if I needed to, or I could go through the ticketing system, but somebody always knew exactly what our case was and who we were and what we needed, and that was really helpful.
And actually, that if I would take another stab at that question and maybe add a little bit of a twist to it. So now, with the traditional sense of delivering prep tests, Phil, for the past, we're talking a quarter of a century now, with the advent of the digital paradigm and the instrument of having the ability to do this on cloud, let alone online and so on, does that enable you to reach more users and more schools and more user base because of such tools, or does that not affect the ability to do that?
No, the short answer is yes. So look, this partnership, in my mind, helps us accomplish two goals. The first is to continue to provide the highest quality preparation to students who live in our microcosm. We are a Washington, D.C. based organization. We work with students within roughly 100 miles, and we have for decades. But Omar, you're completely right. We're hoping that with the successful administration of exams over this platform, that we have a product or a service that will be easily exportable beyond the immediate area. Again, my primary concern is with the kids we're working with very much in front of us. But I absolutely see that this project has potential legs well beyond what we're conventionally doing here in the States. I'll also mention that from the first several hundred students who've taken these exams with us, they didn't find it as uplifting as maybe the 2-minute recording may have conveyed, but they have said almost to a student that they prefer this format to the paper and pencil format. And
that's
so
amazing.
We think digital testing is going to take off to a tremendous degree here. And we're excited to be at the front edge of this change and not to be scrambling to catch up.
Absolutely. That you very well said. I think you actually stole a question that I had just right after this one regarding the student experience. I mean, the students are literally the centerpiece of this whole process, right? I mean, at the end, they're the ones taking the test, regardless of the prep delivery medium. But it was a very, I get this quite a lot actually from people who've heard about this success story even before the webinar. Like, how's the feedback? What are the students doing? How are they reacting to it? Is it weird? Is it foreign? Because while let's say other educational systems, other curriculum structures, like for example, the British system and whatnot, they are still doing things pretty much pen and paper when it comes to standardized testing. All people can only dream, at least, like, okay, so one day with digital assessments on a standardized level can be digitized with almost no fear. And the thing is, actually, you mentioned something that's very important. And I think April, we talked about this early days, and he said we don't need them now, but as we proceed, I think that makes sense. So the ability for you to do things like secure session and AI proctor sessions and whatnot that will bridge the gap between, okay, I can see them right now, but I would do something to a very far state, or maybe even out of border, so I can deliver my testing services beyond, and I still can govern the integrity and so on and so forth. So as you I think very well said, Phil, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Omar. So Phil, I should have asked you in the beginning this question, but anyway, how many students are represented per year? And if SwiftAssess can cover any number?
Sure. So we intensely work with anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 students per year. in our region. These are students who are with us for several months, working on their test-taking skills, sitting for a full series of exams, as many as 4 or 5 or even more. That said, though, we probably administer in a given year anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 simulated exams, and we expect that number to increase. I'm hoping meaningfully now that we have the platform in place. So that gives you a sense of how many tests are being taken just right here within our reach. Obviously, the potential to exceed that number is tremendous.
Actually, if I also would introduce a question here, and this is a little bit, again, some of the audience, people who specifically have been eager to attend the session, they had a question initially, like, well, are capital educators in the test as a service business, can they also prepare and sell these test vouchers to organizations and institutions who would pretty much, let's say they want to send their kids to your organization, prep them instead of them, doing the due diligence and having to adopt and write the items themselves? Is that something that capital educators is looking into as a business stream?
Yeah, I think my earlier comments probably implied that, but yeah. Yes, I think we're still, and I say we meaning I'm still pretty tunnel visioned on making sure this runs seamlessly in our traditional course formats. But I'm not closing the door to those possibilities at all. And particularly if some of my younger and more open-minded staff, stay at me and push me.
Okay, great to know. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. And before I ask you the last question, I just wanted to encourage our guests to send us messages in the Q&A section. So before we end the webinar, we can respond to them. As for now, there are no questions.
They're very engaged. I think it's pretty smooth sailing. Okay. Okay, you can go ahead. I'll save one more question to the end. So just go ahead if you have more questions, Caroline.
Yeah, Phil, could you please give us advice, like what advice you can give us? Sorry.
And the audience specifically. I mean, this question had actually, I think it had a lot of stakeholders involved in it. So, I mean, we're talking to SMEs day in, day out in schools, especially with back to schools. People are already starting to prep their students for things like MAP and ACT and SAT and so on. What advice would you sort of give them from a test prep standpoint? And what, given the digital paradigm of things, and you as you mentioned, you're not just doing testing, you're also doing the course sort of training as well, right? So how would you sort of give them an advice in a way that also sort of promotes your way of thinking as well?
Well, anytime these exams change, they always generate quite a bit of anxiety out there among educators and, more importantly, among families. To the degree that there's always a cohort of families that wants to rush and take the test in its current old format because they'd rather deal with something they understand better, the evil they know versus the one they don't. And I can tell you this. As tempting as that is a short-term business strategy to exploit, and direct people to do their prep immediately, given how smoothly our work has gone, and frankly how user-friendly the testing platform is digitally, our staff is really taking the opposite approach. We are telling our clients there is no rush. There's no reason to do things according to an expedited schedule. The odds are overwhelmingly high that your student will not only prefer the digital format, but potentially score a touch higher on it because it just is a more accessible way to take these things. So it's having a short-term impact on how we're operating our business. We have had to revamp some curriculum along the way as part of this update. But to be honest with you, going digital represents 90% of the change here. There's only a 10% difference in terms of what's actually on the test.
In the core content itself, that makes sense.
April, did I hit everything right there?
Yeah, the big challenge here has been making the shift to digital. I would say the other changes that we're experiencing right now with the new SAT have all been on par with what we've had in previous iterations, right, of this test.
Right.
And this is so we have yes, the test is changing, and then the digital piece on top of that is the really big deal for us. And having that under control, once you got that under control, I mean, we're back to what we know and understand, and that is teaching kids to prepare for the SAT and giving them the practice tests to do so.
Actually, I think okay, I have a couple of questions, and it just came to my mind, and I think it makes sense to the narrative of the discussion. So we're talking about SAT, but using the same platform for other assessments that are of a standardized nature, and again, from a test prep standpoint, like the ACT, for example, would it still suffice to use the same tools and the same customizations that were done with April and the team to perform those or to deliver those, or is it a different thing? So I'm getting these questions again from SMEs who are in the field, and they're like, okay, well, can we do this? Can we build test preps for these kind of tests or not? Is it just SAT only?
So, our feeling is we want to do everything in our power to simulate the official testing experience. So on the SAT side, what we're doing makes perfect sense. The multi-stage exams you've helped us with perfectly reflect what the students are going to see in reality in 2024. Where ACT is concerned, you certainly can use this existing technology to prepare students for the exam. But until ACT fully buys in with some kind of adaptive instrument, it probably wouldn't make sense on the same scale to do this kind of prep. And by the way, in case you're curious, I think ACT is gradually going to get there. They've already acknowledged that they're going to start to give static exams on computer choice in the coming months.
Okay.
And my guess is there are people quietly behind the scenes doing this kind of work and getting.
So there's already a buy-in, seeing how things worked for the digital SAT, I think, right? So College Board.
Yeah, and big picture, SAT and ACT are competing agencies, and more than competing for profit, they are competing for test share. That's really what they care about. And but my initial sense is that going digital is going to give SAT an enormous advantage.
Of course, market share wise, of course, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so for the
also that although the ACT currently is only in kind of a pilot phase for this static digital test, that is certainly something that if somebody wanted to give a static ACT test on the Swift Assess platform, they easily could do with the tools that you have in place.
That's great. I'm actually, and even honestly, the question was not just about Swift Assess. The question was about, I mean, we can just only dream like, oh, one day we're able to actually prep our students on a digital platform that sort of caters to all of that, and instead just going to paper and pen or hybrid, a little bit of paper, a little bit of digital. So I think that's the light at the end of the tunnel sort of situation. Yeah. That's pretty good news. And actually, this sort of leads to another question. And April, I got this early on when we were talking about the MST. And being a great psychometrician like yourself, you already know the material inside out, and you sort of know the blueprint. But maybe other schools with edu leads and assessment heads, you wouldn't necessarily have the same background. So is there any learning curve to the way things are done from an MST blueprint point of view, as well as the Swift Assess point of view? Like, does it come natural to people, or do they have to have specific set of experiences, that sort of enables them to build a test like this? That's a very important question.
I think there's a couple of directions you can go. I think you can I mean, so I have a PhD in statistics. Like, obviously, I've spent a lot of time delving into the workings of the SAT. I think you could give a test that's pretty close. It's comparable to the SAT without all of that background. I mean, obviously I don't think it would be as good because I think it does take real psychometrics experience to put together a test that really does the same thing that the SAT is doing under the hood. But because of the way the platform is set up for us, we can say, okay, you know what? We know that the first section is kind of medium difficulty. And if you've been giving SAT tests your whole life or for many years, you know what a medium difficulty question is on the SAT. And then we know we need a harder section and an easier section. So there's ways of just, if you are somebody who already knows about what these questions look like on the previous test, I think that it's reasonable to be able to go over and make an approximation without necessarily doing a ton of mathematics, but we're doing the mathematics. So you can go.
That's the fine line. I think that's actually an on-point answer. The point of the question was, and I think the discussion that I was having earlier with one of the SMEs, well, do we have to start from scratch? Like, do we have to write our own questions, or are there like pre-created bundles that help us deliver these test preps that are written via SMEs or psychometricians that are well-versed in the ways and the blueprints of SAT? So it's doable both ways. Of course, if you want to work and associate yourselves with organizations like Capital Ed, that would be worth the investment, of course. But of course, if you want to try things yourself, the platform still enables you to do so, but you can have to have a little bit of the background, which splits the difference. I think we have and again, we have a great set of audiences joining us today. We have an SME from Egypt who is also very well versed in the American curriculum. I think Dr. Alia, I think you have something to say about this. I just want to make sure to. I'm going to allow the mic on your side just in case you want to make sure you want to have any question or you want to have any interjection at this point. It's great to have SMEs join in and weigh in on the questions. I don't know if you can hear us. I just enabled this thing for you as well, just to make sure. All right. While we wait for Dr. Alia if she wants to weigh in. Caroline, sorry, I broke your flow, but I just introduced these questions because I felt it was very relevant to the context. And thanks again, Phil and April, for weighing in. Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, thanks, Omar.
Sure.
So, Phil and April, on a scale from 1 to 10, what would be your rate to Swift Assess? And if you would highly recommend our platform to the similar companies in the US.
April, you want to start?
Of course we're gonna highly recommend, because this is, like I said at the beginning, we are a small company, right? I am the director of technology. It's a very fancy sounding name, but at a very small company, right? So we have. We're very good at writing SAT questions. We're very good at teaching students how to succeed on them, but this is beyond our scope. And so the fact that we were able to, so early in the process, be ready to go with these schools that are coming to us and saying, hey, can you prepare us for this new digital SAT? And say, yes, we have the technological capability to do that. I mean, it's not something we could accomplish on our own, and it was extremely painless doing it this way.
That's amazing to hear, honestly.
Thank you.
By the way, I mean, I would actually empower and highlight the word small businesses. Actually, a lot of the tranches that we're sort of in the tiers that we're addressing at GamaLearn across all of our platforms is empowering SMBs to do more. So we're sort of empowering them and creating those experiences to make sure we're actually able to innovate and inspire and drive these innovations beyond. And I think those are the organizations that require a lot of the tools and a lot of the resources, because they go way beyond their initial blueprint, and they can really, really just drive high. Where I think initially when we had similar discussions with other companies, they were like, yeah, we don't really entertain, small to medium businesses. We focus on the enterprise customers. That's not where it is. I mean, that's where the differences are being made. So thank you so much for your trust and your endorsement. It means a lot to us, Phil and April.
No, thank you. And thank you for your ongoing support, because it really makes us that much more confident moving forward.
It goes without saying.
Phil. I guess that was my last question.
So if we have any questions, we have about like maybe 5 to 10 minutes on the Q&A. If there's anyone with any questions at all from the audience, you would share with us on the Q&A tab, or just you can raise your hand, and we can also allow your mic if you want to say, be audible. Okay, Dr. Alia, just want to speak. Amazing. So Dr. Alia, you can, yeah.
Hi, I'm so sorry, but I had a tiny problem with the audio. But I hear Dr. Omar that you were asking about something. But will you please tell me what was it?
And I was sort of introducing you as well to the audience, because you're an SME, well versed in the American curriculum system, and I thought you maybe have a question or two for the audience, for the guests today from Capital Educators. So if you have any questions or any comment, please go ahead. The folks are here and are happy to answer you.
Actually, I'm so happy with this opportunity, because it's really nice to know about having SAT in a digital way. And I believe it will be much more easier for students. As I experienced as well, I already was proctoring, or I was an examiner for SAT at Egypt, the paper-based one. And at the same time, I actually witnessed the ACT as well in its digital form. And I believe it's way easier. So if we can have the SAT in a digital way, it will be amazing. And I guess for our students, because they are already shifted to the ACT in Egypt, so it will be so easy for them to shift to SAT as well. So I'm looking forward for it. And thank you very much for everything. But I think I also agree with the opinion that it may find some resistance at the beginning, because usually people prefer the evil that they know, as you said. So so hopefully, but I think it will be smoother because they already tried the ACT. So I wish you best of luck, and I hope we see the SAT in a digital form soon in Egypt, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alia.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for joining as well.
Thank you.
Two things that will make the administration of digital testing easier. One, we've kind of danced around it, but I don't think we've said it directly. As a multi-stage exam, this test is able to be considerably shorter than the linear paper-based version of the test has been. So it's going to, the new exam is going to be almost an hour shorter, which is really much better for the students.
It's true.
And because the digital test has its own countdown clocks, it takes that timekeeping task out of the hands of random proctors all over the world. And while most of them do just fine, I can tell you from personal and indirect experience, proctors make mistakes with that all the time for any number of reasons. And so I just think it's going to be a much cleaner experience to give these exams internationally or domestically.
And psychometrically speaking, April, that means there's less noise in the data and is more solid accuracy across the reports and the actual, let's say, readings from those reports. Psychometrically speaking, calibrating those items, making sure student abilities are measured correctly. So your personalized reports per student would have a lot more value than, let's say, the traditional sense, which can include a variance of reasons that could be just noisy, as Phil said, right? Am I right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what the students are getting when they get a score report based on the new digital SAT, say you're a very high achieving student, you are going to get, you're going to see how you did on a number of questions, and they're going to be difficult questions that you get to see. Like you took difficult questions and you got them right or wrong. Maybe you got some of them right and some of them wrong, but it's going to be, you're going to have a lot more information as a high scoring student than you would if on the old test, when basically you got almost everything right. Like hardly any of those questions are ones that were going to be challenging. So this way, a high scoring student or a low scoring student or somebody in the middle is going to have a lot more information about their area, their range.
Yes.
So many more of the questions will be relevant, particularly in the reviewing the question stage, which we always do with our students. We give them a test and then we say, okay, now we're going to go over the ones you got wrong. With those high scoring students, sometimes you're really reaching for what to do with, what to say about the questions, because they got a lot of them, they got most of them right. They're going to get more wrong because there's going to be more differentiation at the top end of the scale for the number of questions.
And here's why, ladies and gentlemen, April is a designated SME when it comes to this whole transformative experience. I think it takes one to know one, right? So definitely, I mean, it's amazing to have made acquaintance with you, Dr. April, and with Phil as well from Capital Ed, to make sure we have curated this experience. And we really look forward to an amazing, amazing new year, and a successful delivery for the official test launch at 2024 in March.
Thank you.
So any more comments, Caroline, or closing remarks?
No, I don't see any questions. No.
Perfect. So again, I want to thank.
It's all clear. It means it's all clear and useful.
Absolutely.
To
Absolutely.
everyone.
Again,
to both educators and students.
Absolutely. And this, again, for those of you who, I'm just recording this for everyone who's going to be watching the video afterwards. This will be available on our case study when it's published. And for those of you who won't be able to, join us live, yeah, you can always get in touch with us. There's going to be many different means of communication on the actual case study. I want to extend a special thanks for Phil and April for supporting this and making this happen. We really love the success we've had together. We're barely starting, so there's a lot more to come. And we're, if this has been a successful partnership so far, just wait and see the next phase of this partnership. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. It's the beginning of the day at your side, so towards the end of our side. But you know what? It's a beautiful start and it's a beautiful end. So
thank you both.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone who was joining us today as well on the audience. And have a great day and have a great night. Goodbye.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Take it easy. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.